All right, welcome. We're here again. We're painting. We're going to have a wonderful time painting this beautiful mill along this pond and creek and river here. We're going to cover all the details you can imagine on how to get this completed. It's not a tremendously difficult painting. We're going to show you how to trace this from our phone. So if you have a phone, cellular phone, a mobile phone, you're all set. You're going to trace this photograph from your phone or an iPad. Even you can use a computer, laptop computer or desktop computer. So that's how we did this. We're showing the quick version of how to get a drawing done quickly. You don't want to spend 4 hours drawing something. You want to get it done quickly. We're going to show you how to do the tracing effect of just setting your paper over the top of your phone or your iPad or your home computer or laptop. You can do that, get the drawing rendered really quickly, beautifully, and then we go in and we just explain how we're going to use the alla prima method using our paints here in our palette to get our darks first, which we're just going to start painting our darks in first, and as we're working our dark paints in this painting, then we'll start to work our middle tones here, which are our trees, things like that, a little bit of the water, but you'll see how fantastic this is and how well it works using some tracing techniques to just get a really quick rendering of a scene you might want to paint. And then, of course, getting into the details of how you're going to mix your paints, get your paints out on the palette, figure out what colors you're going to use first, and then we're going to mix our darks. We'll show you how to do that and get your darks in to your composition first, and then from there, you can go with your middle tones and then work the rest of your painting out from there. So let's get started. All right, so we just saw the finished painting, and let's get right started with how we got to that final look, the final washes and all the details of the painting. So the first thing I did, we just talked about it in the intro just for a brief second or two, so I want to kind of cover it more clearly now. But what I did was I was looking to paint like a mill picture. I just had this idea of painting a mill, an interesting subject matter. This one happens to be, looks somewhat rustic looking. So you can see this here on my cell phone. And then what I did was, instead of taking all the time to really break out the rulers and the hash marks and all this, I figured let's just kind of do a quicker version of saving a little bit of time. And then I just took this, and then I took my watercolor paper and I placed it over, and this is like a 6x6 watercolor paper frame that I framed out. So I did a pencil lines around here on the paper, and I think they did line up to be about 6x6. Okay. Actually a little bit under that. So we're at like 4 1/4. If you were measuring your pencil lines, this one's like 4 1/4 by 4 1/4. But what I did was I figured it to be for a frame that I purchased. And the frame, and this is how you can also, just incidentally, this is how you can kind of set up your painting if you want to as well. Something like this. It could be a mill, it could be a barn, it could be an interesting, kind of structure or anything like that, a house, building, whatever you might like to paint. But on this one in particular, I did use this mat that came with a frame that I purchased. So the frame came with this mat, and I just placed it over my watercolor paper basically, like that. And then I made my 4 dots in all 4 corners, here, 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 and here. Then I took the mat off, and then I just made my pencil lines a little bit further out from those dots that I made, so that my painting's a little bit larger than the actual perfect square that we have here. So I took the perfect square, made the dots, then I made my pencil lines about 1/4 of an inch in every direction out, so that I made my working area a little bit larger. This way I have a little bit of freedom to move my mat around once I'm done with the painting to get it just in that right spot. I think it looks good. And then we can mat and frame it. So the first thing I did again was, instead of just doing the whole drawing process, there's no reason why we can't use our electronic devices. So you could use this, like you could use your phone and put your paper down and trace over. Right now it doesn't really look like you can see it through the camera, but when I did the original sketch over the top of my phone, it did work. I just put my paper over the top of my phone, and I could see the light through the phone, and I could see the image of the this mill. It's an old, again, antique mill, and that's how I did it. I just traced it, So instead of sitting there and going through all the steps of, this angle and that angle, and this is, measuring all that, you can do that too. It's great to kind of practice all. I always mention, you're the artist, you'll figure out how you want to create your paintings and your drawings. That's fine. I think it's always great to practice, contour drawing and sketching and, trying to draw by eye and by, just using ordinary reference and then just trying to replicate that when you're drawing. But you can also trace too. Tracing is just a kind of a quicker way. You can get a little more of an exacting drawing when you trace something. So that's always, could be a good thing in a sense on certain projects you might be working on. So let's see. I did that. I put and you could take this same idea and use it like on an iPad, which is a little larger. You could use it on your laptop. You can take your watercolor paper and put it up against your laptop. You can just take that concept and just keep, working it to whatever extent you want to. But this worked out really good for me. I wanted to paint this mill. I wanted to draw and paint this mill, and I said to myself, well, it looks great. The drawing here on, or the photograph looks great. Let me just use the photograph. And then I just dropped my watercolor paper over my phone, and I could see the light through the phone. And again, I could see the outline of the image. Maybe not every part of the drawing. You can kind of fill in the blanks, so to speak, when you do this type of thing. But I did see the main structure. That was clear. I could see it through the paper, and I traced it. And I traced the roof over here. So you can kind of see how I got this beautiful drawing using my iPhone. And then what I did is I set my iPhone aside here. Well, let's see now. Well, you're going to see the whole process in real time. So the next thing I would do is I would just take my tape, my artist tape, and I'll just tape out around the border. Like so. I would do it all around, all the edges, 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is a great way to, kind of expedite your drawing process if you want to. Once in a while, you take some ideas with tracing and things like that and use those, because sometimes it can really be helpful too if you have a project and you have to get it done quickly and someone asks you to do something. Let's say someone asks you to do a certain project for you and you're kind of tight on time. You may be working, you have a lot of things, you're really busy, and you say, oh, I want to do the project, but I don't know if I have enough time to really hash out all the details of the drawing for the person. I want to make it look great, but it might take me hours upon hours to get everything exact. Well, maybe I'll just trace it and then work from there. And you can do that. There's no harm in that. All the great professionals throughout time have always used tracing in their techniques and methods when they were doing their artwork. So no reason why you shouldn't do it either. I'm not saying you would do it all the time, but it's up to you. But this is a great way. I use it to save time. And if I'm like, again, I have to do a project and it has to be done quick and I don't have a lot of time, or if it's something I want it to really come out just perfect and I'm not really willing to make that gamble of it coming out right with my drawing, I might just do the quick, simple idea of tracing, and then basically you get a real, exacting kind of drawing. So let's go with that idea here on this project here. So, all right, so we have everything taped down nicely. We have our palette ready to go. Next thing I would do is I would start to mix my paints of what colors I'm going to use, and we kind of can see here from the color scheme, it's a really beautiful, looks like a sunny, warm summer day. So we're going to go with that and figure, some beautiful greens for the trees and some blues and purples for the foliage and trees. And if you wanted to make this an autumn scene, then you would just maybe refer back to some other paintings you've done where you've done some autumn type paintings, or maybe some photographs or other artists' paintings, and you would say, oh, okay, I can create an autumn type feeling by using some more interesting ranges of color where you might make some oranges and reds and greens with the tree leaves and all different kinds of other colors you can mix in to get your fall colors for your trees if you want. But I'm going to use this photograph and use this as my reference, and so I'll try to replicate the green trees as if it's summertime or spring or summertime. And what I'll do is I'll set my phone up across from me, and that's going to be my reference for my colors, my darks, my lights. So again, we're really basically now, once we start our drawing, we're working with two ideas basically, two concepts, or two main things we're going to keep in our mind is, well, we have one thing we want to make sure we capture the darks and the lights here. So I'm going to paint this alla prima, which means all at one time. I'm going to start going in and getting the darks in first, and then I'll work into the lighter tones, the middle and lighter tonal values of the painting. But you can kind of see there is a pattern here. You can see the strong darks and the shadowing and underneath the roof overhangs here. And then you can see the dark shadowing over here on this side of the building up top. And then also some really dark shadows under here, under this roof over here. And then some dark shadows again under the rooftop where the actual mill is. So there's a mill here. And then we see some intermittent darks, very, very small, but stones within the building that are kind of a darker stones placed in this building. That when they created this beautiful structure with the stonework, they created some darker stones on the corners of the building. Looks like what they would call coin corners. And they use the darker stones on the coin corners of the building. And then again, you have some darks over here too in the dark shadows in the bottom area of this painting where the trees are. Maybe there's some really dark areas here that are really low, far underneath all the shade of the trees that have that really dark look. Some dark bushes and trees underneath here, underneath the shadowing of all the trees up above. And again, I think we have that basic concept of some really good darks here, and then quite a bit of middle tonal values with the trees, the middle tones. And we have some lights too, where the sunlight's coming across here on the face of the mill. And then we have some really, really very, very light sky color here, which kind of looks like a lavender, bluish lavender, and then some orange, a little touch of orange along the lower portion of the sky. So I think these are the colors we're going to think about and the tonal values we're going to think about on this. But I think you can kind of see that pretty clear dark and light in the painting. It's kind of got a good, I think I enhanced the photograph a little bit with some of the adjustments that you have. Like, so if you have an iPhone, you'll have all your adjustments in your iPhone. You can take your iPhone and click on it, and sometimes you might be able to do some adjustments to it. So if I was to click on this and then click edit, so if I'm using my iPhone, you can click the edit up top on the right, and then it gives you all these options. You can click on the plus and minus sign. That's your light and dark, and then you can see how I can make it darker and lighter like that. So it's always good if you can work with some of your adjustments on your phone to see where you can have some more interesting adjustments you can make to the photograph to make it more interesting, more exciting. You do what you feel is best. I'm going to leave it back to the original, I think, so I can see more color. You can kind of see if you change the exposure on the photograph, you can kind of sometimes see how you'll lose color when you adjust and you'll also lose some things like tree leaves. So here, if I want to make it really bright, almost like the sunlight's just like bright looking, well, if I do that, I'm probably going to lose some of the color here, as you might see now as we do that. So here we have the light in the sky, and you can see there's some blue and a little bit of the orange, kind of reddish orange there. If I start to change the exposure and go really, really bright like that, you'll see that gets all kind of, it gets diminished a lot, so you don't see much color. You're just seeing more or less just like white. So if you want to leave a lot of white on your paper, you would just take this like so, leave this all white paper, maybe a touch of some color there for the sky, but you'll get more dramatic light in your painting. If you want to leave it more like the original photograph I had, then you can leave it at that point where it's just the original photograph that we captured off of the internet. So it's up to you. You can make adjustments, though. They are helpful. Maybe I will just go a little bit, a notch, a little bit like that. Yeah, I think I'm going to go a little bit more. I think I'm going to add a little more of that light. I already know that the sky, I can add color here, but this gives me more definition as for my darks and my lights. Can you see how that is? Like I can see more of the darks now if I lighten this up here, the picture, with the exposure level. So you could do that. I'll just save that like it is, and then there we go. And I'll just enlarge it a little bit like that, and then I'll set it across from me. And what you can do is, as you're painting, you can kind of like zoom into one area. Like if we start at the top of the building, like so, the mill, you can zoom in, set this across from you on your by your table where you're working. And then when you do that, you'll just notice that you'll be able to see this closer, and you'll be able to work on the details more as you're painting up here and you're painting. And then when you get down by the roof over here, you can kind of zoom in over here too by this lower area. So you can do that too. You can zoom in over here and say, I just want to see a little more detail over here by this roof area, by the actual mill itself. And you can kind of see how you can do that. Or you can just leave it out, zoomed out just like that, like a normal photograph without really, zooming into things. But you can zoom into things too. Again, use your electronic devices to their fullest maximum potential. I think it'll help you a lot as an artist. We have all these great technologies. Years ago, they didn't have this type of thing. So you really look how much of an advantage we have right now. If we're painting the details of the upper portion of this building, we can just do this like that. And then we have an enlargement of it right away, instantly, very easily. And then we can start painting in this area. So let's do that. Let's leave it enlarged like so. Set it up across from us. And we'll start painting. So we'll let me get some fresh, clean water, which is going to take me a second. I'm going to have to go over on the other side of my studio, far away. I have to grab a bottled water. I think I have some bottled water over there. I don't have enough time to go down and get more water from the basement area. So let me take a quick break right now, and we'll get started with the painting in just a second. I'll get some fresh water, and then we'll begin. All right, so we're going to pick up again here, and let's start mixing some colors. Now we looked again at our painting, and that's when I'll just set this up across from me or alongside my painting here, my photograph, and I'll just kind of see that it's very, very, the colors are, I would say this is a simple palette of colors or a simple color scheme. I'm thinking, we have the greens, right, and the yellows. So you have like yellow and green for our trees here. And then we have some like darker darks, which are kind of like dark brown and blue and grayish dark brown blue. So we can use our typical French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and so we have French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and burnt sienna for our darks. So we can use that for our darks. And then for the lights, I can see that we have an orangey yellow type, maybe brown, a little bit of brown, burnt umber, orange. We have some orange here. Let's get some orange there. So we'll have some orangey brown, yellow there. And then we're always thinking about mixing in a little bit of cool colors too with our warm colors. So I'll just add a little bit of cerulean blue along that, so we know we keep mindful of adding a little bit of cool colors to that golden brown color that we're going to have here, that orangey brown kind of yellow color. And then we're going to have our darks up here. So that's pretty much a good bit of color we have out on the palette for our upper section here. And then we can mix in some purple. Over here we'll get some of that ultramarine violet. And so we'll have some ultramarine violet there. I'll tape my palette down so it doesn't move around as much here. So I apologize for not taping this down beforehand here, but we'll do that in a second. So a little bit of purple there. And we're going to add again for green, sap green, olive green. So I'm going to mix some greens in here. Sap green, olive green, a little bit of cadmium yellow lemon. So there we have some good three greens, like a kind of a cooler green, kind of like toward the blue color, toward the bluish range. That's the sap green. Then we have the olive green, which is kind of more toward the gold colors, like maybe towards the yellow ochre. And then you have your cadmium lemon yellow, which is very, very cool lemony yellow. That's a cool yellow. So those three are going to really give us a good, and then maybe some blue. Let's say some cerulean blue too. That's going to give us our really nice range of greens and blues and yellow for our trees. And I think that's it. I think that's all we need. I think all of these colors right here, which is sort of a simple palette, you can kind of see how I'm using 1, 2 greens, but that's pretty close in color. So even if you just use one green, you're okay. With a little bit of the cadmium lemon yellow, that's the one with a touch of cerulean blue. That's kind of like your trees for your surrounding your building, our mill. And then we had, again, we talked about the dark. The darkest darks, we're going to put in there the French ultramarine blue. And I wouldn't worry about the colors mixing a little bit. So you got French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna. That makes a good dark for those darks. And under here too. And then for the stones in the building, you can just use these, any of these colors kind of mixed to make a grayish color. So I would use maybe purple mixed up here with the orange and brown and blue to make like a gray color. So gray colors are fun. You can kind of just take your time, work with your grayish kind of colors. When you're working with your main vibrant, exciting colors first in your painting, then you can take some of those and work those colors together a little bit here and there and see how they look to make your like kind of your grayish colors that are going to be in your painting. Those very muted, like exciting kind of colors are more just like muted. They look beautiful though because they kind of act as like a supporting role for your more exciting colors. So let's take this all and start to put this into the painting and the paper. I will tape down my palette so that it's not moving around. Nothing more annoying than the palette moving around when we're trying to paint and you're trying to watch the video and you're seeing stuff moving around. So we'll do that. Take the top of the palette, just put some tape on there. And another piece of tape. I'm using some Pro Artist tape. And I'll put some at the bottom, which you're not even going to see. Sort of off camera there at the bottom. All right, so there we go. We're all set. We have our palette taped down. And then let's take our pen. I'll take my phone and I'll set it up across from me and I'll zoom in. And then I'm going to use my, this is a really nice brush. This is a number 5 Da Vinci. And this is a synthetic Da Vinci brush. And this actually came with my Whiskey Painter's paint box. It's a newer paint box. I might start using this one on our videos. I might change up this palette and kind of switch over to this one. This is called the Whiskey Painter's Private Stock. This is a really nice palette. It might just be nice to change palettes. You know, I've been using this one for 2, 3, 4, even 5 years now on my channel. Maybe it's nice to just get a new paint box, and this one's kind of nice too. Kind of the similar size. I did the same thing with the customized palettes. I customized pans. I customized the pans here in the middle. So I think I already have this one set up to work with all my colors as well. So I kind of worked with this one for a while on the workbench and got it so that I have all the same amount of wells, pans that I need that are going to be the same as these for the most part, and we'll just use this one eventually. But for right now, we're going to stick with this one. And let's get started now. So the first thing we're going to do is, and I'm sure everyone is happy, some of you are going to text me, or you're going to put comments in the comment section. Chris was talking a lot. He was talking a storm up. So fast forward to whatever timestamp you want to put on there. I'm happy though if you put, thank you for those people that do comment and put in the timestamps of when I start painting actually, because I know some of you maybe don't even paint. You just want to watch the video for the, for the fun of it, just to see the painting process and see how these things come along here as we're painting. So, but I encourage you, if you're just watching, get yourself some paints and watch too. I mean, start painting too. I have so many people send in so many beautiful bits of beautiful paintings and artwork, and I'm amazed at how good they are getting from just simple watching our YouTube videos here. And okay, so I'm looking at the photograph and I'm just getting in my darks. So if you can imagine, I'm just looking at that pattern that I see in the paint in the photograph, and it's all darks over here. And I mix up some more darks: French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, burnt sienna. It's a little bit darker usually underneath the eaves of the roof, and it gets a little bit lighter in tone as it's down onto the walls, but it's darker under there. And I can see that the roof over here on this side is somewhat now that's probably catching a little bit of light, I would say, the roof shingles up there. So I'm going to I'll leave a little bit of white paper there. A couple of highlights never hurt. And that's a shadow there. And then we'll pick up some of that orange color here. And I think that's about there where that orange color kind of and then if you see that it is a little bit lighter in a spot or two, you can always take a little bit of tissue, roll up the tissue a little bit, and then you can blot. And do that. Blot up a little bit of that paint. If you notice that if it tends to be like it got too dark of a wash, if the wash got too dark, you do that. Roll up your tissue quick and blot up. You can always go over with another wash on top once it dries, or you can just leave it. Once you blot it up, it might look okay. So I'll do this. I'll add that orange and yellow there on the colors and mix it around a little bit just for that feel of sunlight really baking onto that bit of the mill there. The sunlight's coming from this side this way, kind of like actually this way, high up in the sky going across the sun. You can kind of see it there. And then I'll take a little bit of that color mix with the blue too mixed in there, the cerulean blue, kind of a little bit of a splash or two. And then I'll start to add in the light, and then a little bit of that purple here. So I'm mixing up a little of that purple, and that's like that grayish color. So we're going to start to mix in the kind of the grayish colors with some green. So what I'll do is I'll take some of that sap green down here. I'll take some of that sap green and just kind of work it in there a little bit so that we can get a little bit of the greenish colors. Greenish blue, cerulean blue. And always remember you can go back in and get some, you're going to put in some darker washes. You're going to put in some darker washes on top of these lighter washes we're doing right now. And then we're going to take some of that green. Green. Now this is going to be higher up here, the trees. And what I'm going to do is try to do some finger painting here for the lighter leaves up top along the highest points of these trees over here. Like this. And then I'll start to do a little bit of the darker washes with a little bit of the cerulean blue. Gets a little bit kind of, there's a little more shade and things as we go lower here. And then I'll do the same thing over here. I want to kind of use the same color, so let me sort of just do that. And then I noticed that maybe I want to add some cerulean to the sky up here. Like that. So I'll add some of that cerulean blue, straight cerulean blue, to the sky up here. Couple more finger dabbings here. I'll use a little finger painting. I've been using that technique for a long time. It works great. You can get some really nice like leaf shapes and forms with trees doing the finger painting technique, dabbing. And then we'll mix a little bit of the dark in there too. And again, if you go too dark, you can lighten up with a tissue. And then there's a little bit of shadowing here with some of the blue. A little bit of purple up here, so I would use the ultramarine violet too. That makes a good grayish color, the ultramarine violet. And you mix in that with a little bit of maybe burnt sienna. That could be for some shadows. And then we're going to go back in, burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. And that will give us our dark darks that we're looking under here for this portion of the shadowing over here. Like that. And then lots of shadow under here. So what I'm doing is trying to get my darkest darks in again. And then there's also, well, there is some dark under here. A little bit of an archway here where there's a little bit of some areas where the water drains out from where the mill is in here. They have little bits of arched, I guess, channels where the water drains out from up in the mill. Okay, so now we're starting to, things are coming along really nicely here. Again, as the leaves and trees over here get lower to the ground area, they're going to be darker. So they're lighter up here with the kind of lemony yellow and green up here. And then as they come down here closer to the ground area, they're going to get cooler. So I notice okay. Okay, now I'm going to continue to work with my darks and a little more cooler darks here. And I'm following the shadow patterns that I'm seeing in the photograph. And it's a lot of shadows in here. Some are darker. Okay, that's the actual wheel in the mill. And then there's some grayish colors in there, some green. And then there's some the posts under here like that. There's a couple posts under there. Okay, so we are really moving along here. We're going to have to take a break soon. I tend to feel like breaks are important because I tend to get a little bit, like my concentration isn't as great after 15, 20 minutes as when I started. So that's why I'm thinking let's take a break. I'll do maybe this one section over here. I'm using that ultramarine violet purplish color to get some grays in here. You know, some more subtle looking like color. And then there's some more darks over there with some green in it. So maybe I'll take some of that green up here and then take some of that dark and mix it in with that green over here on a separate type of thing there. Okay, so that goes there. It's dark there. And then it's dark along here and there. And I'm going to start working the water kind of colors here. And once I do that, I'm just going to do this to try to get some of that watercolor in there. The color of the, it's almost like a lake or a pond right next to the mill. And that's where they're able to cool and get the wheel to turn from the river. So it's probably a stream here in this picture, like a nice stream looking thing. Or I mean a stream here to keep this wheel spinning, the power of the current flowing on the so this is and I like to mix that shadow of that the actual wheel of the mill I like to mix that all up into there, like that, so it all flows together. That one dark kind of mixture and shadow kind of all flows together. You see how that is? I don't want to have it too. And then let's make some green in there too. Maybe some orange. I try to mix different colors in there. Shadows tend to have the colors. Of the surrounding area. But we are kind of really, so I'm hoping this looks good for the water here, the reflections, and we'll keep working on the reflections in a bit once we're kind of developing the rest of the painting. But I think right now let's take a break. We've come a long way already. We're probably like halfway through it, so we're all set. We're halfway through the painting. Let's take a break. Let's let the colors dry, the washes dry that are on there now, and you kind of see how this was. We're doing the alla prima technique, which is just basically painting everything at one time, starting out with the darks. Usually that's the best game plan when you're doing alla prima, which is painting everything at one time. You're just going to start with your darks. Usually you get a good feeling of your dark patterns in your composition, and then once you get your dark patterns started and you're working on those, then you can start to work in your middle tonal values as you're going through. And I think that's a good way to really paint. It's really fun way to paint, the alla prima method. And I think it's helpful too if you're kind of like newer to artwork and newer to painting, I should say, watercolor painting. So thank you if you're brand new here. If you're brand new and it's your first time or your first few times you've been watching, I really am so happy you're here joining along. We're going to do lots more paintings. Week after week, we are here. I always say, please subscribe on the right-hand side below. This way you don't lose track of us. This way, if you're happy and really excited about what you're seeing here and how we're working, and trust me, it's just a matter of following along each week, month by month too as well. And if you can't paint all the time, that's okay too. If you're watching the videos, you're going to learn a lot just by watching. And there's many of you too that just watch, I realize. So thank you for watching. If you're here just watching along and you know, having this as your fun thing to do when you watch YouTube, you can watch some watercolor artists out here. And we have tons of watercolor artists here that work along with me on YouTube that are painting this same exact way, having great success at what they're doing because they're just doing the same methods and techniques over and over again by following my channel week after week, month after month, and year after year. And people are having great success. So I'm hoping you'll consider joining along and grabbing some paints and brushes and some pencils and paper eventually, or maybe now you're going to do it, or very soon. And if not, that's okay. And I'm happy that everyone else is continuing on and enjoying the watercolor journey. So I'll take a break now, and we'll come back and we'll start to finish up things. And again, we're more than halfway through, I would say, at this point. So we are in good shape. Let's get started in just a few minutes or so. All right, so we're going to get started again here. Let's get some of this over here. Looking at so this is about halfway up here. So I'm just looking at it from I'm trying to, like, instead of pencil drawing this in, I'm just thinking to myself, where is the darker shingles? There's wood shingles on the top of this building, and then there's the stone down below. Where do the shingles start? The siding here. Well, that starts about halfway between this roof and this eave up here. So if I just go about halfway, I have my point there, and then I just go across like that. And then I can just start painting in that area there, which is the darker shingles there. Okay. And then we can have a shadow line here. That. Then we have, let's make some more dark here. Again, French ultramarine blue, burnt umber, and a little bit of burnt sienna. Now for here, I'm going to do a window, but I want to make sure I don't have too much paint on the paintbrush. So a lot of times you'll see me mix in my pan. A good thing to keep in mind is if you're going to do some smaller areas of darks and you mix up some darks, you're going to have a lot of extra paint on your brush. You might want to tap off a little bit on the tissue or on an apron, and this way you're not going to go in and add too much paint, and next thing you know you have a large blob of paint on the paper. So I just dry off a little bit. And this way I'm able to get that little bit of a detail there of this window without adding too much paint and water with my wash. And then there's another window over here too. I'll make that one a little bit less. I won't fuss over this one as much. Just I'll get it in there. Blot it up a little. Okay, now let's see. This I might want to draw in actually. So over here, there is a window here. So I'm going to make this window center like this. And the bottom of this window, I'm looking across from me, is about the same height as the roof ridge, the ridge of this roof. So that's about right. There we go. And then, so usually if I'm adding in details, I'll just try to reference other things in the painting. That'll give me a good idea of where I need to kind of be with those parts of the details. If I'm adding in like a window or a door or some other kind of feature, you can kind of see how I'll just look at other areas and go, oh, well, where's that bottom of this window? Well, then I look across from it and I say, oh yeah, almost exactly across from the bottom of this window is that rooftop. So I can use this rooftop and kind of just go across and get that point there. And that's a good spot there. And then I can look across from me in the photograph and I'll say, where is this window compared to the bottom of this wood siding up here? There's some siding up here. How far down is that? And then I notice it's, you know, it's not that far down. So that's about where I think it looks. So if it's pretty close, you're going to be fine. And then I'm going to let that area kind of set up a little bit. And then what I'll do is I'll start to make some of the corners of the stones here. And again, I would do the same thing. Grab some of these colors here. And dry off the brush on some tissue for the darks, because you're going to make some small stones here on the corners of this building. So I wouldn't. So I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to make a couple of the stones as I see them in the photograph. You know, some of them might be different colors. Maybe we'll make some red ones here. Like that. Then I'll just go down with a little bit of water and kind of make a line there. And then over here there's some more, same thing, but they're a little bit more subtle over on this side. And then there's, of course, more stones. So I'll put some splashes on there. We just have to be careful with the splashing. That can get a little bit out of control. So I'll more or less put some dots here and there of paint and then do some tapping. And that might be good. That might get us what we need. So a little bit of gold maybe, orangey gold. with a little bit of water, because I notice this is starting to look a little bit kind of cool with a lot of greens. So let's get some gold back in there. And that looks pretty good. That's convincing for some stonework. Like that. Good enough. That looks pretty good. That looks like stones to me. And let's go over here and we'll start making some more stone corners over here. These are the coins of the corners. So you can, well, from the photograph that you saw earlier, you kind of can see how the stones have their kind of their rhyme and reason. And so I'm just trying to get I wouldn't go with every detail. I see there's a dark stone down here, a large one, like that. And I'll make just a line there, sort of a casual line, nothing too big. As far as, and then I'll splash on some more greens. Now we're getting into some more, I'll use French ultramarine blue. Maybe I'll use it right here. French ultramarine blue and that green. This is a little more cooler down here. So now we're starting to get into that little bit of a darker, maybe even a little bit of the dark like that. Then I'll maybe there's a little bit of light down there. And there is that really, really dark green down here. I guess that's the darkest dark where the most shadow is in this painting. As far as the greens go over here by these trees. So I kind of leave those as they are, as I'm seeing it. And then there is some water there. And then the water, there's more of that stonework there. And I'm trying to get some light. I'm letting some of that white paper stay over here. I think that looks good. I meant to leave a little more white paper up here. Maybe we can add some white paint to that. Sometimes though, white paint doesn't always look so great. That rhymes. White paint sometimes does not look great in a painting. Only sparingly. I wouldn't add white paint to our paintings. We try to leave white paper as watercolor artists. That's one thing I think I mentioned that, and occasionally I mention that, and I hope everyone will forgive me if I haven't mentioned that, but we always try as watercolor artists, if you want to leave bright whites in your paper, or I mean in your painting, you want to leave a lot of like light or bright lights, try to let the white paper be left unpainted for your lights, for your really, really bright lights. And then if you want to add some white paint to it, add just a little tiny bit of, like for highlights, you might add just a little bit, a tiny bit of, we'll do it at the end of this painting. We'll maybe go in and get a few highlights with our titanium white paint with the very tip of our brush, and we'll do a little bit of highlights, but we don't want to do too much of that. So that's the key. If you can, when you plan ahead for your paintings, try to remember, if you want to leave some really bright, like sunny areas, try to leave it white paper. And then even, I used to, when I was first starting watercolor painting, someone told me a good idea. If you have areas you want to leave white paper, you can always put a W. Like on this roof here, we could say we put a W in pencil and say we want to leave this area white paper. So that W on the paper, when I was painting, when I first started painting many years ago, that W on my watercolor paper always meant, Chris, do not paint over that. Leave that white paper. And then when you're done with your painting and it's 100% dry, like a day later, then you can go back in with a pencil and erase the W's off the white areas. And no one knows anything. So that's a fun way to kind of preserve the whites of your paper. And again, you can use a little bit of white paint here and there once in a while. I think it's okay. It looks fine. But sparingly, though, because I think watercolor is sort of temperamental. We really have to take care to kind of follow some of the things that we know just don't work. I think someone once mentioned in watercolor that it's very important to know what not to do sometimes in watercolor. It's important to know what to do, but sometimes it's really important to know what not to do, because then that'll keep you away from, maybe having some difficulties with certain things that kind of just don't work well. But it takes a while to figure everything out. That's the thing with watercolor. I always noticed with watercolor there's a long learning curve with watercolor. It takes years to kind of learn all the little bits and parts of information with watercolor, and that's what I try to do, is always try to bring as much as I can, as many details as possible to my videos, so that you don't have to fall into the same pitfalls I did. And so that was hopefully helpful. I know many of you have taken that to heart. I'm always getting people sending me beautiful paintings, emails with paintings that are just looking great. So let's see, I think this is looking good. We left some white paper up here, across here, through here. We're going to leave the white paper for the roof. Some of this over here too, we're going to leave white paper. Now we're going to start to work over here. A little more there. I think I need a little more of a warmer color. Some gold, some yellow ochre. Over in these sections. And then we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to reflect. This actually looks like this is all right. That's going to be, so what we're going to do is try to get some of these details in the water. This is water area here. This should be more light. So we're going to take this like that and make that that's going to be this here reflected down in the water. And then we're going to take some of this here and make some splashes. Blue. So we're going to mix all the colors here, but very, very minimally. And we're just trying to reflect down into the water here. So the water starts about right here. Right across here the water starts, and then it wraps around the building over there. And it's all in front here. And you can kind of see I'm just trying to reflect down into the water. What's above. So I'm just taking what's above here and putting it down into the water. So this up here eventually is going to be over here. So this is going to be a dark here. Like that. And this is all. And I just try to do that for the water, long. And then that's all we have to do once we have that paint on there. Once we have that paint on there, I would add some of the green. Like that. I don't know, maybe I have a fan brush here. Might be able to use this to sort of just do this kind of a thing. That tends to give it more of a water feel. And then maybe a couple just, I think that's okay. That looks pretty good. There might be a little bit of shadowing over here. A little bit of very, very light orange with just a little bit of water, and a really tiny bit of orange just to get some like warmth on that stonework there. That's on the front of this this front area of the mill where the water. Maybe I'll try to just touch up a few spots. And again, I wouldn't do too much. I would do maybe a little more of that orange on the roof over here with some water. So I would rinse off the brush, dry off the brush, and have just a damp brush. And I would put just maybe a tiny bit of the lightest bit of orange, and then even blot it up, just so it has a little bit of warmth on that rooftop. And I think everything else looks pretty good. There might be a few more details we can do. Let's take a break though. I always mention, please take breaks. What breaks can do are, now when we take 5-10 minutes, when we come back, we can, just before we start going back and grabbing some paint and our brush and say, oh, this needs that, and this, you know, we start kind of in our mind thinking about where we think things, you know, should be touched up, or if we need some more details. If we take our time with that and just maybe pause for a few minutes, once we come back, we take a break, we rest, relax. Then when we come back and look, we might say, I think I'm going to leave it just like this. I'm not going to do any more work to it. Or you might say, I might do just one more thing. And that's what we're going to do next. We're going to take a break and come back and see if we do want to add anything to this. All right, so I'm going to get some of that ultramarine violet purple color. We're going to get started again here. And again, we talked about not doing too much. We're coming back now. We took a break, and now we're looking at this and saying, What are we going to do next here? Well, are we going to do anything else? Is this the final details might be already fine. We don't really need to do much more, but let's just step back here now. I'm looking at it. I'm saying, all right, I can already see a few things that I definitely want to do. There's some stones that are on top of this window and on the bottom of this window. So a headstone and also a sill stone there. And then there's also some shadowing along the... So I'm using purple with a little bit of burnt sienna for the shadowing here. Like that. So I put that shadow there. That looks good on the left side of this window. We're kind of seeing this on an angle. So we're seeing the actual opening of the window there. And what else? Maybe we'll do a couple, just some shadowing lines here for the siding on our, like that. We don't want to do every line, but a few lines here and there. And then a couple vertical lines too, just to give us that feeling of some of those wood shake siding there. I think if we just do a few of those vertical lines, a few of those. There we go. So just a few there. Like that. Okay. All right, so I did add a little touch of detail there. Not too much. I can always zoom in a little bit, see if we can. So I did add a few details there, and if you think you added too much, at this point I should empty my water container. Always remember, toward the end when you're doing your final details to the painting, I would definitely add fresh water to your water bucket. This way, you might have a little more easier time getting the colors you want for the final bits of detail that you're going to put into the painting. So I think everything looks pretty good. We have a little bit of that siding there, and then I'm just going to soften that up a bit too. I don't want to put too much detail. You can always soften out some of those lines if you put some lines on the siding for the facade here of this. Then after this, I would take a damp brush and smooth out these shadows underneath. Like that. Then I would maybe I won't touch up any more there, I don't think. And the water looks good. Perhaps we'll use our titanium white with a little bit of yellow ochre. So I'll take my titanium white with a little bit of yellow ochre in the top. Yellow ochre in the top of the titanium white. Then I would have a tissue along with me there, and I would dry off the brush a little bit, dip in, dry off the brush a little bit, so I only have a tiny bit on there. And then I might do like a quick little line across here like that. And here, this line I might keep like that. That looks a little better, I think. And where else might we need? We could always do that. A little bit of few lines here in the water. This too. Like that. Maybe a couple lines like there, where the water kind of goes to the left over here. Maybe a few branches, just a few. And it might be good to maybe another little bit of, just not everywhere, but a couple spots there. Like that, just a few highlights there. Probably didn't add enough yellow ochre in that white paint. That's the key, to add enough yellow ochre that it's not too stark white. So that I could have done that better. That would be better if I added more yellow ochre to the paint. But I'm not going to be too critical about that. Just kind of mental note. And maybe just a few darker darks here. And then I would dry off the brush. And I might just do a few branches over here too. Just a few branches, I think, would look good. Yeah, and I think just a few of those branches here and there, maybe a few over here too, would definitely kind of give it some more detail. It's a bit abstract, so a few more of those details of the branches just give an indication of those bits of trees and things. So, and I think that's pretty good. Maybe a little more green reflections in the water over here. We do have a lot of dark greens over here, so I would try to get those in there. And we could blot them up a little bit. And then a little bit of the vertical, like that. Purple, and then a little bit of that darker wash, and then maybe we can just do a couple of these. I always feel that getting reflections in water and watercolor is not the easiest thing. And I think we could even do a little bit of this, I think. Now, even though this shadow, this reflection probably wouldn't be here, we could add it in, and it kind of just maybe helps the painting to look like there's some shadowing or some reflections in the water. So that's something where you can kind of sometimes push the, like we're just trying to like maximize the reflection quality of the painting right now. And then to do that, we can add that little bit of reflection there, as if this window was reflecting down in here, even though we know really it would be further down below the painting if we were like to actually take a photograph of this and look at it. But that's really about it. I think we have everything kind of like just right. I think it's not too many details. So we're finished with our details. We didn't go overboard with that. And it's a little bit abstract still, so it's not like we have every kind of imaginable line and, you know, detail in the painting itself. And then we can, let's take our tape off here. It looks much better once we kind of give it a nice border. Like that. And I think we're going to be happy with this. This looks pretty good. There we go. So this is our mill painting along a beautiful river and creek and pond. Summertime, lots of bright sunny sunlight effects. Hope you enjoyed this video. Please, again, I always mention, hit the subscribe button on the right hand side below if you're you want to follow along. We're working here every week. So week after week we're here all the time. Usually 2 to 3 videos we create here on our channel every week. So you'll be working in all kinds of different formats. Sometimes we'll work larger paintings, smaller paintings. We'll do all different interesting information, like we'll do sort of like landscapes like this, and buildings and structures and houses and street scenes. And then we'll do, we love to do still life here with flowers and vases and fruits and all kinds of interesting things like that, cups and saucers. And we love to do seascapes. So we do the ocean, we do boat scenes, we do portrait paintings, figure paintings. We cover all small types of informational videos, like palette, how to set up your palette, colors in your palette, different brushes you're going to use, all different things like that. So we cover pretty much all the details you would need in watercolor here on my channel. So I'm hoping you're going to stick with me. If you subscribe, you won't miss a thing. And I also mentioned too, I have a new book. And that's wonderful. It's in the comments, in the description box below. You'll see it. There's a link for it on Amazon if you want to pick up my book. It's got all the best of my best paintings in there, the last 5 years of my best work. And I'm really proud and happy of my book. And I hope you will pick it up and use it as a to work from, and work and use all those paintings to paint. Enjoy that. And I also have a video that shows you all the pages of the book, so you'll kind of be able to look through the book real quickly. It's not a super long video, but you can see all the pages in the book and see exactly what's in there, all the paintings. And I'm sure you'll be extremely happy working along in my book to practice up on your watercolor skills. So until we meet up again, happy painting, everyone. Enjoy the watercolor journey, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.